All right, everybody. Thank you guys so much for coming out today. Like I said, I hope you guys are having fun. We're going to get to introductions. Panel today is Violence in Video Games, Streamers on Culture and the Value of Gaming. We're going to touch quite a few topics today, mostly just a lot of conversation. If we have time at the end for some questions, then we'll get to some of those questions too. So let's get in. Let's see if I click the right way. Nope, wrong way. Nope, it was the right. Nope, go. There we go. I got it. I figured it out. So first, we have Destin. Go ahead, Destin.
Hi, that's me. I stream on twitch.tv/Destin channel, but I also work at IGN full-time. I'm a senior features producer over there. And yeah, I'll be representing both perspectives.
Yeah, because we're going to talk a little bit about that media part. And we've got Ava down at the end there.
Hello. I stream on Twitch as well. That's about it.
Then in the middle, we've got my buddy Mike.
We said, we need a picture of you in a car. And he was like, I got you.
With a nice
Selfies are the best.
angle. Yeah, so good.
So I am mcadley. I am an affiliate streamer. I've been streaming for about 16 months or so. Mainly do a lot of the Fortnite game right now. Do Destiny 2 with the new Forsaken expansion. I love the shirts, by the way. And that's pretty much it about me. Twitch.tv/mcadley for myself.
All right, and who the hell am I and why am I here for this panel? My name's Illegal Not Marcus. I'm actually a police officer from Texas. Full-time police officer is what I do. Some Texas people out there.
I'm hiring him. I live in Texas.
I'm a field training officer. I'm a state certified instructor. I have a lot of other advanced certifications, but I've been gaming since I can remember. Original Nintendo all the way up. I play a lot of first-person shooters. I've been digging a lot into Call of Duty. I want that dark matter skin. So I've been doing a lot of gold grind outs, so my KD has gone down a little bit. So that's what I do, and that's why I'm up here right now. So what are we going to talk about today? We're going to hit a few topics. We're going to talk about the media when it comes to violence in video games, politics, some stats, some major events, and then what are the benefits of games, what really, for the most part, drives video games out there. The first, we're going to talk about games and media, and Destin's going to be a nice topic person for this. So here's some headlines I pulled off the intranet. This one I loved. Partly
Daily Mirror, my favorite.
I really loved the nipple tassel little note up there at the top. So.
Oh, wow. I didn't even see that.
So these are the headlines that we see a lot in the news. Of course, news loves to sensationalize. They love to get a story out there, what drives views, what drives all that stuff. But Destin, what do you feel that the media normally does when it comes to video games?
Hyperbole. Hyperbole. There's been so many studies that have actually proven that there is no link between the two that you can go read for yourself. And actually, both sides have done this study. People that are looking to target video games, and they fund these studies, and they do them, and they're like, oh, I guess we're wrong. But that this keeps coming up in the media every time that there is a violent situation. And it's because it sells papers, it gets the clicks, and people want a villain. They want an easy explanation, I think, is what people are really looking for. And video games, the same way that rock and roll was a long time ago with heavy metal, video games are kind of a new target that people align against and say, well, that's the reason. And it's never that simple. It's never one thing. It's a lot of factors that go into why these people do terrible things.
What about you, Ava? I mean, this is your career.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to the violence of first-person shooters. What do you think every time you pull up the news and see that headline?
It's frustrating. A lot of my colleagues, thankfully.
You're not Ava.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
It's frustrating. I kind of laugh because I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, really? Like, all I do, obviously, if you know who I am, I play shooters all the time, and I'm a rager. I get very aggressive. I get very loud. And yet, when I lose at a video game or I kill a lot of people at a video game, I don't have an urge to go out and stab someone or anything. So it's just ridiculous. And then I'm like, who actually reads this and believes this? And then I read the comments and I'm like, oh my God.
So it's funny that you mentioned
a lot of people.
You mentioned the comments, and I forget which news organization did it. Some of us were talking about this yesterday. They had this really ridiculous headline that was false. And then in the story, they said, this is a false headline. We're just doing a study to see how many people get their news off of just the headline. And what do you know, it was something ridiculous, like 70 or 80% of the comments were, oh my God, I can't believe this. And it was just based on the headline. They didn't actually read the story to see that it was false. And that's just the way people get their news these days. They read the headline and they blast it out on Twitter.
And then they fight in the comments, and then you're like, did you read the article?
Right.
Because everything that you're saying right now is actually being disproved in the article.
Right. What about you, Mike? You wake up, you see this. What do you think when...
I mean, as a kid, 8 years old or so, I was performing fatalities on Mortal Kombat, right? So tearing people's heads off and things, right? You know, kind of like all of us said, I've never had the urge of going out and performing that as well. So when you read this stuff in the media and, you know, you hear from your parents and they're like, oh my God, video games, I told you your whole life, just go outside and play ball. I mean, I play video games right now. I'm into the Fortnite thing as well. And I mean, I can put in 12 hours a day, let's just say it, on my day off. And I have no urge. That is my time away, I feel like. I feel like that is my, you know, I de-stress with video games. It's not the opposite where I play games because I'm a very rageful person. I do rage as well for all of my friends here that do watch. Because I'm kind of like you in a way.
That has
I like
never
to
happened.
scream and yell. I'm a little aggressive at times
You
with
get
it.
it out of your system.
What's
Yeah.
funny is every single one of us do that.
Yeah.
It's just the competitive nature. Yeah, it's just the competitive nature in all of us. I don't like losing. But again, you have to differentiate reality and virtual reality. You know, and it all comes from, I believe, the way I was raised. And, you know, we played 2 or 3 hours of games and you would go outside and, you know, play baseball. It's a little different now where, you know, the way you kind of give your kids an iPad and that's their world. So in terms of the media, though, yeah, it's all bogus to me.
So, one of these days I'm going to figure out this stupid remote. So now the politics portion of it. What do the politicians do? They're supposed to be the ones that we elect. They get up there. They're supposed to know more and do things to protect us. What do they say?
She is
So
laughing.
So I grabbed headlines from both sides. So both sides have the same conversation. This isn't left, this isn't right, Democrat, Republican, it doesn't matter. Both sides go out there and try to have this conversation. We'll start with Ava this time. Why do you think that both sides start this conversation and never finish it?
I don't really know, because they have the answer. All the studies have been done, and then, yeah, you're right, they kind of just go silent on it. It's just like an easy distraction. Like someone said earlier, easy to blame, and so, or especially with our presidents, they love to throw stuff out there to hide what we're really mad at or really fighting over, which could be like gun laws or something. It's easy to distract and get everyone riled up about saying video games are the cause. So it kind of distracts from the real issue, I guess.
Do any of you think that there will ever be a legislature that can come out from either federal or local government that would ever curb in any way anything we see these days when it comes to violence or video games?
It has happened in other countries, so we have seen it. It is possible that that could take place. I don't remember specifically, but there's like M-rated games that have heavy censorship.
Oh yeah,
in
they
them.
can't be played in Australia. GTA
Yeah.
can't be played in
Have to alter
Australia,
it.
right? Or
Yeah,
something, yeah.
exactly. So it has happened in other countries. I really hope it doesn't happen in America, and thankfully our political system has a lot of barriers for something like that getting all the way through and made into a law. So I hope it never happens. Could it? Maybe, but it would take a long time.
So where do you have that? So you go to Target, you go to Walmart, whatever, and you try to pick up Grand Theft Auto 5 at 16,
Yeah.
and you're not allowed to. So then what? But 16-year-olds still play Grand Theft Auto 5. So where's the issue there?
The parent. Yeah, the parent needs to do their job as a parent as they're allowing their children to play these games. And honestly, some parents feel that their children are mature enough to experience this, or they play it with them and sort of explain the experience that they're going through. So I think it's okay as long as the parent's being responsible. If they just don't care, then I think they need to sit down and explain their kids the difference, like mcadley said, between reality and fiction.
And that's something that we were talking about a little bit earlier, and I'll get to that here in the next one when we start talking about some of these stats. So here's some stats that I found that other people had done out there. So the left one, what you see is a violent crime rate versus video game sales. One is the violent crime rate is pulled off the FBI's Uniform Crime Reporting, the UCR, and then just sales numbers. So you see violent crime decreases at the same time video game sales increase, and I guarantee you that video game sales increase has gone up exponentially last year and this year. And then the right one, you see juvenile violent crime has gone down. Now, is that a catch-all? No, those stats are showing raw numbers. All you're not actually seeing. Like Avery and I were talking about this earlier. You know, we're having less children in the U.S., so that's going to be a factor in those stats. There's just not as many kids out there to commit these crimes. So by no means is this a catch-all saying there's absolutely no correlation, no factor at all between violence in video games.
Just overall, it seems like there's a general decrease.
Right. Now, could that be laws that have gone into effect over that time? Could that be policing strategies that have gone into effect, how we treat juveniles in the justice system?
Is there better parenting skills?
Professionally, I can tell you that's usually not the case. I mean, the way that I treat juveniles on the street is usually a lot different, especially for me, for first-time offenders. I don't want to put them in the system if that doesn't have to be, because you end up creating that downward spiral, that cycle that just continues everything out there. So there's definitely some stuff, and especially, like I said, as policing continues to evolve, there's ways that we change how we go about dealing with juveniles. And I saw this officer back over there too. Is it San Jose? You guys are awesome. I got to deal with you guys a little bit earlier today, talking to some of your guys. Were you the lieutenant that was out there? Okay. San Jose police were awesome. I got to deal with them earlier. They got some good guys out there, a couple of good sergeants that I got to talk with. But you know, there's a lot of differences with how we deal with juveniles that I think will lead to some of that as well. Do those stats shock any of you at all with all the talk about violence in video games, Mike?
I mean, I feel like a little bit, right? The crimes are going down, but there's more people playing games, right? It should be the opposite if the media is true, right? Where the more crimes, the more game playing. Is it less violent games kids are playing now? Like, is that the thing? Games like Fortnite, where they're more, you know, cartoony, where it depicts killing and shooting, but at the same point in time, it's more cartoony, where kids can relate a little bit. But yeah, I mean, according to the chart on the left, I mean, I would think that at that point in time, it would be the opposite. You know, and what was the one on the right again, Marcus, about juveniles, right?
That's juvenile violent crime. Serious violent crime committed by juveniles in that same time frame.
Now, are kids just staying inside playing video games and not going out into the real world where they have that opportunity? I mean, at that point in time, it's really, it's hard to prove, I guess, virtually, right? You know, that's why there's stats here and charts and all that kind of stuff.
I'd love to dive more into these, like
Yeah.
probably after the panel. Obviously, I can't do it immediately, but what the hell happened in the 90s? Like, look at the spike there on the right there. The 90s were really bad, and it's actually kind of gone down. That's actually a relief, because if you were to watch all the coverage in traditional media like CBS, NBC, ABC, you know, the big three, you would think that it is a battlefield out there at all times, because when there is a moment, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later, when there is a moment, they just bring it home, and they try and answer the question of why. Like, that's what a good journalist tries to do, but then they just they present this answer, and the answer for them sometimes is video games. They bring on some of my colleagues who have had this conversation before. They're like, there is no causal link here. Why are you doing this again? Why are they doing it again? It sells papers, it gets clicks, and it's really, really unfortunate.
And especially now with social media on our fingertips at all times.
And that's what I was going to bring up. You know, the three of us are in our 30s. You're probably, what, 23, right?
You're so sweet.
Yeah.
You know, when we were growing up,
28.
you know, you remember getting, you know, AOL and, you know, your modem making all those fantastic noises when you were dialing up. And that just wasn't out there. There just wasn't, obviously Facebook didn't exist. I remember my first time getting a Facebook account, one of my buddies was like, don't do it. Your life is going to go down the hill. You're going to look at your phone all the time.
They know everything about you.
Don't get into Facebook. Don't do Facebook. And that was back when there was only like 7 universities that could even get Facebook, because it was a university-only thing. And of course now everybody has it, and you know everything instantaneously. You know, the news is just out there. Again, the officer out there will know that for us in law enforcement now, it is so big that we get ahead of these stories. We have a use of force incident, we have a shooting incident, whatever the case is. Now you're seeing almost instantaneously body camera and dash cam coming out.
Yeah.
Because it's the moment that you see, and I've been guilty of it, of watching a police shooting, and I was like, dude, that cop's going to jail. And then the whole story comes out, and I'm like, nope, that was okay. But I was guilty of that brief moment. I looked at that one 10-second clip. I made my entire decision based on that. And that's what we see with a lot of these. Again, it's that knee-jerk reaction, oh my God, something happened, and he played Call of Duty last night, so it's got to be related.
It's why we have a judicial system, right? Because if you look back, like a long, long time ago, it was just the community made the decisions, and they often just decided innocent people were guilty, burn them at the stake, you know. And today we're kind of seeing that with Reddit. Reddit will go after people that they think are responsible for the Boston bombing, for example, who are totally innocent and basically destroy that person's life. And that sort of mob justice needs to be curtailed, and it is
Outrage
dangerous.
culture.
I'm guilty of it too. I've gotten really mad seeing some of these police shootings that happen, and it's upsetting. You and I have discussed it before, and I totally understand why that happens, but you have to have the information presented all in one place before we're able to make that decision, which is why we have a jury.
And that's often the case. I know, like we talked about it. I got to talk with James Duggan when we were at E3, and that was one of the things. Obviously, Mike, you and I have talked a lot. I think this is really another one of those places where it's like that, where there's so much more information on any of these things. Some of these shootings come out. Oh my God, he played video games, so that's got to be it. And the same thing is true for police shootings or any type of police use of force or any incident. There's a ton of information that goes into this. There's a ton of factors that happen, and the news blasts, oh my God, this happened. And everybody's like, I can't believe that happened. It's like, well, there was 3 hours worth of stuff that happened before that that led to that event happening. And then, of course, you see it here. All you saw was violent video
20
games, all
seconds
of these
of
things.
video too. Yeah.
Right. And then, of course, we'll get into the Jacksonville shooting later on. But so what was the news' answer to that? It's not a violent video game.
No.
But there it was.
Madden's a sports game. Yeah.
So
There's nothing violent about it.
So where's, again, there's no correlation there, but that's what they're going to try to play. It's that knee-jerk reaction.
Sure.
I wouldn't play football. It's pretty violent.
Well, it's violent in that aspect, right? Yeah.
Kidding,
The whole
kidding.
goal, obviously, is not to hurt
Yeah.
somebody personally or intentionally, but it is, I feel like that was more competition-based, right? And I know, again,
Right.
like you said, we're going to get into it a little bit later, but I played in a couple of Madden tournaments growing up as well, and just to know that, there is a lot of trash talking in that community, but that's part of any competition, right? You always want to get under a person's skin, you want to get in their head, and then get them off their game, and that way you can win, right? Any video games like that you have any competition for. I'm sure all of us can kind of agree on that, right?
Yeah, I've deleted some videos from the older days. I'm like, oh, Ava, it's not.
I might have went too far on that
little
one.
toxic.
But he lost, and he took it upon himself to make the other people lose in life as well. So it's unfortunate, but that's the outcome.
So we'll start jumping into those. So the first one that's going to be up here, not a whole lot of people know about.
Oh, yeah, I never told anybody this story. I kept it really personal because I wanted to give the officers involved a chance to investigate and such, but I was swatted like a year ago. I have a small apartment complex, and every once in a while there's people doing dumb stuff in the alleyway, so I have reported them before. Like, there was a guy selling drugs in the alley. I'm like, can you come arrest this idiot? And they do. They go arrest him. I hear it, and I'm like, good, I can go to bed. So anyway, what happened was they had my number on file, and somebody called in a gun incident at my apartment. They said I had a gun and I was holding somebody hostage, and that they need to send somebody. So they sent a SWAT team of 3 gentlemen who were very professional and did their job, and they called me ahead of time, and she was like, hey, Destin, do you have a gun? And I'm like, no. What's going on? And somebody had been in my chat threatening to swat me and like shut me down because I was playing Call of Duty, which I'm bad at.
And they always, you're going to get swatted. They
Oh, it's
always have
Call
to
of
tell
Duty.
you.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
always have to tell
They're
you,
like,
too.
I know sway. I'm like, yeah, go ahead. So they did, and and the cops called me ahead of time. I ended the stream. I cooperated with the person on the phone, took everything out of my pockets, went downstairs, my hands above my head. They were kitted out. They had like what Marcus had, basically, if not more, on them. Like, they were ready for an actual situation, and I just cooperated with the authorities, and thankfully I was okay, but not everybody has been that fortunate. And this isn't something that kids need to realize the ramifications of these situations when they call in fake threats, and it's terrible what's happened to some people.
They really don't. There's just, and I feel like any time we've found out the identity of someone who's done this, they're always so young, not even
Yeah.
20,
Yeah.
maybe early 20s.
In my case, it
just-
was a juvenile.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
don't understand the consequences. They're not thinking of, they're stripping away your personal safety, your privacy. They're just thinking, oh, I'm being funny. They're not thinking how you're feeling on the other end. There's some stranger, I don't know who he is, I don't know how old he is, I don't know where he lives. Does he live near me? Like, is he gonna come to my house? They don't think of that. They just think it's, oh, haha, Call of Duty, funny, because that's just kind of what everyone does in that community who's like a hacker or something.
Yeah, and like I know Marcus, he's in law enforcement. Friends of mine are in the military, so I'm just like, I'm just gonna shut my mouth and do exactly what they tell me because this escalate really easily and really fast. And I did that, and I was okay. But not everybody is going to be able to do that. It was a high intensity situation. Like, your adrenaline is pumping. There's people in SWAT gear, and like once it happened, And I let them into an apartment. I showed them all the evidence I had, and they put an investigator on it. It was fine, but I mean, like, it took me like a week to be comfortable in my own home, and that's like, I didn't want to stream, I didn't want to do anything, and it sucked. It sucks to feel that way.
Yeah, I remember the conversation. You told me about what happened, and yeah, I didn't see you for a week.
Yeah.
So, were any of you watching this when it went down?
I know I was as well.
Thankfully, we found out later on that it wasn't an actual firearm. It was either a high-powered BB gun or high-powered pellet rifle. But this was the second incident, if you guys don't know. It actually happened the day before as well. They shot his car. So for those of you that don't know, Dr. Disrespect there streaming some Black Ops 4 blackout mode, and all of a sudden he gets up, he walks off, he comes back, jumps out of character. Someone had just shot his house. And at the time, again, nobody knew that it wasn't an actual firearm. But it was the second time, and again, it has to do with that, like you were talking about, that private, that personal security feeling, because somebody knows where you live and they're out to do you harm. And that's quite a scary thing. It's sad that we've gotten to that point with video games. Let's all be honest, it's a video game.
For most of them, they're not going to do anything. They just want to threaten you. They just want to fuck around with you and make you uncomfortable.
Dropping
I was like, can I? I don't know.
I was going to say earlier, I'm going to try not to cuss, but it's probably going to happen.
We're
So I'm
still
glad
going
you
to be,
started it.
we're going to be worried about that one person who isn't, 90% of these kids, nothing's going to happen. I mean, I've been threatened so much and nothing's ever happened really. I've had a couple incidents, but I'm always worried about what about that one time, and then that one time did happen to someone.
Actually, one piece of advice, like right after I did this, I had done it before, but I registered to vote, and all my personal information got put out there again as a registered voter. So you can actually go to a website that tells you step-by-step how to remove your profile online. So like as you start getting bigger in the streaming community, you're gonna wanna do this. And being in media at IGN, it's something that you actually want to do to protect yourself, because if you can Google your name and find your home address, you probably don't want that out there.
Nah, it's a scary situation.
Yeah, that was
Life's at risk.
one of the things that you and I kind of talked about, Ava, with the security portion. Because one of the things that I do, one of the things that we do, because I'm also a security consultant for a firm in the DFW area, and I focus on esports and gaming. We do what's called a deep dive. We go through, we scour social media and see what we can. And within about 30 seconds, I knew where you lived. It didn't take me long.
crazy is
I
that?
know it's pretty easy.
Now, again, me or like there's actually people that make a lot of money out there that for not only for the firm but also for the government. That's all that these people do is go through and do it, and they're really good at it. But again, it goes back to the hackers. How do you find your address? So there's a hacking aspect for those people, and their mind wasn't hacking.
Yeah, I was doing a stream yesterday. I've had this guy who keeps texting me, and I block him, and then he calls me again. And
He
so
texts your phone?
yeah. Hey,
That's
Ava. And I know it's
crazy.
someone who knows just my stream personality, because my real name is Amanda, but most people call me Ava. So I always know it's some random person who's just found my number. And yeah, they just think it's okay to text me. Like, it's perfectly normal. Hey, what's up? Like,
If you're wondering,
No.
that's not okay.
no.
Yeah.
And you've never
No.
had any personal conversations with them either, right? They just can randomly go on. and-
Sometimes I try and say wrong number. But I don't know if that's bad, because that's still kind of engaging.
No.
But then they're like, no, I know it's you. And I'm like, fuck.
Yeah. So for law enforcement, the issue comes in is again the internet's
That's one.
go.
So they can never do anything. I'm like, this guy's calling
Right.
me and harassing me, and I'm a small female, and it's always just like, we can't do anything until they do something. I'm like, okay, so after I'm dead, then we can get a.
So obviously, luckily, you live in my state, so I know that's there. So there is harassment that can go with it. The difficult part that comes in with that is the internet.
Yeah,
Internet's a fantastic place, but it also is a really good place to hide.
yeah.
And
I
I can-
screenshot everything now and say that. they
I can
told me.
create any account I want anywhere and text your phone, and when I go back to trace it as a police officer, it's going to come back to a program. And there's nothing I can do without intense search warrants and search for IP providers, and I want a search warrant for that business now. Now we've got to trace back where it came from, and now they were using something else and ghosting their IP, so now we don't even know where that came from without FBI level.
The easiest way is to
tools.
just hope that how I caught my guy that one time was scouring through his Twitter, and he ended up tweeting a family member I found. So my incident was just this young kid. He was a young kid. I made him mad because I never give in to like trolls or hackers. I'm just like, do it. Like, I know you're gonna do it anyways, so swat me, like do whatever. But so he was threatening me, he was calling me, saying he was gonna beat me up, you know, and all that nice stuff, you know, really, really threatening me. And me and my friends just would stop social media because they have to tweet you. Like they can't not say anything to you. So we stalked it, and I eventually saw him tweet this girl that had a first and last name in her Twitter. And then she had said cousin to him or something, so I knew she was family. And I searched her Facebook because family members, like your parents, your sister, your brothers, if they're not in the gaming, they have their first and last name on everything, which I'm like, Mom, please. But so I managed to find his family and then called the police in that area because they gave him up pretty quickly. I'm guessing he's not a good kid. So, but I never heard from him again. But again, like, it was so hard because I called my local police and I called their police and they're like, we can't do anything. And I was like, well, I have like these voicemails from him. I have like all this proof of him, like actually physically, you know, saying that he wants to harm me. It wasn't just like, hey, I have a crush on you and I'm stalking all your social media and pictures. Couldn't do anything, but just getting a hold of his family was enough to stop him because I think he was 17.
And it's done now.
It's done now.
That's good.
Yeah,
That guy.
Yeah.
when we get done, we'll go over some keywords to use when you call them, and we'll get that taken care of. How many of you know her?
Yeah.
No? Lene, Guerra, Miss Vixen. She's been swatted. They came to her house, knocked on her door while she was streaming. They brought her out of the house. They went in, same thing, tack gear, cleared the house. Luckily, she ended up being able to have a conversation with her local law enforcement, and now they know who she is. And so now, if something comes up again, they're able to go, no, that's Lene's house. That's probably not going to be legit. And they've got a ways to get in contact with her to ensure that there's not actually something going on. She's had people try to steal her dog while she's been out walking her dog.
My God.
She has had people order food to her house and say that that it'll be paid on delivery. So again, it's the idea that people know her address. And, you know, that's kind of again, like we talk about the scary part, you know, Mike, you know, you and I aren't partnered streamers. We're not out there. We're not big. We don't have 350,000 followers.
I'm not there yet, no.
Not yet. Not yet.
Yet.
What would you
Hopeful,
think
right?
at the level that you're at now? What would you think if some dude randomly came to your door and was like, "What's up, McAdley?" Which of course isn't your name.
I mean, I hope he brought pizza at least, right? At that point in time, right, that's still kind of scary, right? I don't know what the intentions are. I don't know if it's personal. I don't know if it's from the stream, I guess, unless you have kind of evidence that it's from that. But at that point in time, yeah, that's your personal safety, right? If anything were to happen, like let's just say these 3 incidents right here all had positive outcomes for the most part, right? All of them are safe, all of them still stream. You know, I know that there's going to be a story in there that wasn't so, positive per se. But at that point in time, at least it was a good outcome. We just have to do the measures that we can up front right now to provide ourselves safety, our peers safety, other streamers safety. But yeah, I just hope he had pizza, and I hope he was, a nice guy per se, I guess, at that point. But it is pretty scary. I've never had an incident like that, of course, yet. I hope I never have to go through that.
Was it Elohim, Clara? I don't know if you remember. Yeah, Elohim. He had a kid fly from Singapore to his house. He was like, I'm having a rough time with my family. Like, can I live with you? He's got a kid, a baby and a wife. And
No.
you want to help because,
Yeah.
he's not a bad person, but that's your home, that's your family. Like, who are you? Why are you here? And so that's just a very difficult situation where it's not a negative, violent thing, but it's also still like, hey, there's boundaries, and
Right. And there's a lot of really great avenues for discussion that we'll get at the next one too, or the next slide. But like they talked about, there's some that didn't end up with a happy ending. And I don't know if any of you remember the swatting incident in Wichita. A couple kids fighting. I think it was a team kill during Call of Duty World War II. They started arguing. It then became, I'm going to send the cops to your house. And the other guy was like, fucking do it. He's like, all right, what's your address? He gave him the address that wasn't his address. It was the address to a random guy that nobody knew that wasn't even playing games. Police show up at his house. Multiple officers go up to the front door. They call him out. Guy comes out. All they know is that, I'm trying to remember if it was either I think he had hostages or he had killed somebody
He'd killed
in the
somebody,
house.
I'm pretty sure.
And so this guy comes out, he's like, what the hell are you doing here? They're like, you need to show me your hands, what's going on? And he reaches back behind his back and starts coming out, and the lead officer shoots him and kills him. Come to find out, he didn't have a weapon, and there was nothing wrong with the house. This was just a random bystander. And again, the police procedure is a complete thing we could spend 10 hours on and still not deeply get into why that happened or why the officer did what he did. So not everybody has come out with that happy ending. Those kids have since been arrested. The lead kid that did it has been linked to multiple other swatting incidents
Yeah,
and multiple bomb threats.
I was gonna say, so I'm part of the or was much more involved, but I still love to go to their events and stuff. He swatted hotels and the events and stuff like that, and because there was never really consequences, no one, like, he'd done it so many times, but he had never been caught. Like, and it's hard to, right? Because they just do it for jokes, and like throughout all of Call of Duty, that's always happened. Nothing bad has ever happened, so they just think, haha, it's funny. Like, the event had to get shut down for the day. Everyone had to leave their hotel. So he'd done it multiple times. He'd bragged about it on Twitter, like, I knew who he was and stuff. So then this happened, and he's probably like, oh, that wasn't expecting
just
that.
cost
and
a life.
Yeah, and now I just cost a life. And you know, it was just, they didn't have consequences. It was so hard, you know, because they just think, oh, you know, it's funny, and then, oh, someone actually died now.
This is terrible. I always hope that people that think this is going to be funny do see this as an example of how it's not, and why you shouldn't do it. Innocent people can get caught in the crossfire.
Like,
It's terrible.
like we, you know, most of the time it's going to be a kid who's not really doing anything, but there's going to be that one time or that one incident that we're worried about that is going to end in us losing a life. Or
Yeah.
I have 3 cats, and I'm like, I don't want, you know, I don't want them to get hurt or chased out or something.
Yeah, and I didn't put mine up there, but I've actually been a part of this on the law enforcement side. Well before I ever started streaming, we got a call. It was a smaller agency was out there. I worked for the sheriff's office at the time, so we often helped the smaller agencies with major incidents. But we got a report of multiple fatalities in a house, hostage situation, person with a gun, and they're still there. So it's, I don't remember what time in the morning it was, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm running around with an AR-15 in the dark, evacuating houses, getting people out because we have no clue what this person has inside the house. I'm laying on the ground across the street from a house with a sniper next to me just in case something happens. And we knock on the door. No, somebody came out to smoke is what it was. They came outside to smoke. We rushed the house at that point, take that person into custody, only to find out that everybody was okay inside the house. It was a family. The girl was a streamer. At the time, I was like,
Oh,
you
wow.
stream? Whatever. But yeah, she got swatted, and I was actually one of the officers that responded to this house. And again, luckily everything was okay, but there was a dozen of us. We had an entire neighborhood shut down, getting ready to do everything. And I said, again, happy outcome. The local law enforcement worked with federal law enforcement, and he's been charged with domestic terrorism. They were able to do the back trace on everything and find out who he was.
Serious jail time too, right?
Oh yeah. There was a kid, man, he was like 16 or 17 years old that got arrested and charged with that. I want to say he got like 20 years federal prison for domestic terrorism for doing that.
It's just so crazy to me because I'm like, they know there's consequences, and they have to know that if they mess with if someone does that to me, like, I'm doing everything possible to find out who they are and putting them in jail. Like, I will spend years, you know, I'm not petty.
Keep yourself safe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm like,
It's not a small
just
act.
like how, like, you're so young. How can you just do something like that? You're wasting your entire life if you get caught. And you know, in this day and age, it's much easier to get caught now because.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the lack of consequences.
What's your immediate reaction responding into that situation? Obviously, anger is probably there.
So, I mean, there might be a little bit of that. So,
Are you relieved that everybody's okay?
at the end? Oh, yeah. I thought you meant like
Like,
responding
you
to
you respond to
actual
the
incident.
situation, you go into the house, there's nothing there. What's your immediate emotion and feeling?
Yeah, absolutely. You're pissed off. I mean, there was at least a dozen. No, there was probably more like 20 law enforcement officers out there. We've got multiple ambulances.
She's excited.
We have multiple ambulances, multiple medic units and fire trucks all on standby. We've got all these people sitting out here only for nothing to happen when something could have happened. So what about all the emergency calls that were going on during that time?
Yeah.
That, you know, we've got medics tied up on, so now they're having to come from another city. So that person having a heart attack is now having to wait 15 minutes for an ambulance instead of 2. You know, or I'm out here dealing with this when I could have been out there, you know, taking a drunk driver off the streets, or, you know, catching some crime in progress. Instead, I'm standing out here for a false alarm. Eventually, we find that out.
And then what's your action item immediately following that? You're like, let's get the investigation started.
Oh yeah, so something like that, yeah, absolutely. It's called CID, Criminal Investigations Division, comes in once they realize what's going on. And that's kind of one of the issues that we're running into today, though, is, of course, law enforcement is spread out. You got the really young guys, you got the guys that have done it forever, and oftentimes your investigators tend to be the older guys. They've been around for a long time. They're the ones with the experience. They're the ones doing it. And you're like, yeah, this chick was streaming on Twitch and she was playing Call of Duty Black Ops 4 and got swatted during a blackout event. They're gonna be like, "What the fuck are you talking
He
about?"
has his
Well,
wooden
that's what I
pipe
was
that he's
wondering,
lit, his
kind
top hat.
What kind of are the laws? Because it seems like it's just like nothing's ever done after swatting. It's just like are there strict laws in America on stuff
Oh yeah,
like that?
it tends to be a federal offense is where it
Okay.
goes. So the FBI is normally who comes in and investigates that, unless it ends up being tied to local. I live down the street or across the city from you. Then something like that, a local law enforcement would take into effect. You start getting into terroristic threat for Texas.
Because it
Is
just
what
always
it is.
seems like there's not enough being done, but it's just because the internet is so big and new, still relatively new, especially
So the issue tends
swatting is new.
the issue that tends to come in will end up being your law enforcement. Depends on where you live. If you live in a big city like Dallas, then Dallas PD obviously works very closely with the FBI because of their size. San Jose probably works pretty closely with the FBI because of their size, the venues that they have here. So you get something like that happens with them, it's not much for the investigator to call up their local FBI officer. They're contacting the FBI and say, hey, this is what I got, and turn it into a federal case. One of the things I used to do was drug interdiction. And so we were always on the interstate looking for narcotics moving up and down large amounts of money with the cartels. So we worked really closely with the DEA and HSI. And so when we would get something, yeah, there's a local offense for it, but we'd call the DEA. Hey, we've got, what did we get that one time? 4 or 5 kilos of meth that was moving. And we had DEA agents there and HSI agents, and they come and take it over federally, and then you just don't hear anything about it. It's not news for us
Yeah.
normally, but so we worked with them a lot. But you get something, BFE Texas, which there's a lot of those out there. What are they supposed to do? They don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
They don't know about this stuff, and so that
Poor
becomes.
Louisville.
Louisville's not bad. They're a fairly good-sized agency. They usually know. But that's usually where that drawback comes in, is you have people that just don't. You get cops that just don't know. There's a lot that goes into this. Have you ever looked at the Texas Penal Code law book?
Yeah, I was gonna say, how's Austin?
Again, Austin's you have the capital
Yeah.
there, so you're going to have very much working with a lot of federal law enforcement agencies. So if it happened to you, it would get expedited pretty quickly up
Yeah,
to the feds.
like as soon as I go home after this panel, I'm gonna be like, hey,
I mean,
guys.
so the Texas law book is about this thick. It's about like that, and the words are about this big.
Yeah, I know nothing.
So it's pretty complex, and I can only imagine what federal code is. So, of course, we kind of mentioned it a couple of times. So we've got the Madden shooting, and I'm not going to mention him. I'm not going to say his name. He's not going to get any notoriety from me. I don't care who he is. But we're going to talk about some motives for it. We're going to show the heroes that were up there. You've got the guys that ran into the sounds of gunfire that had no clue where it was, no clue where he was. If you guys don't know, the fire department, the local fire department was actually training like a block away. And one of the first shooting victims comes running up to them while they're training and goes, hey, I've been shot. And the fire department was like, well, shit. So they start triaging him right there, and the rest of them run to the gunfire before police even arrive.
Oh my
You got
God.
firefighters that have zero protection, zero weaponry, and started running to the event
You're gonna make me
to save lives. So that's who we'll show up on here, because that's who needs to be recognized for that. So again, it kind of goes back to what we were talking about before, is you have a non-violent video game in terms of what society tends to deem violence in video games, and yet we end up with a shooting. There's a lot of things to break down with this, but
Is video games the cause, according to media?
so media will say violent video games
Yeah.
cause it, so now we have a non-violent video game that ended in violence
They were pretty quiet on this one, though, right? Like, they didn't have a lot to build upon.
for
Because it was Madden with
right.
Jacksonville.
So it didn't. So what came out of this was security issues. How did he get a gun inside there?
Yeah.
And that was something that Ava and I were talking about before. When it comes to security, and like the joke I kind of talked about earlier, I've never been asked to show my tits on stream. This never happened. Nobody wants to see me.
I
no
was
one,
shocked.
no one says, "Hey, baby, do you have a boyfriend? You should date me." We don't get that.
Yeah,
So-
every female streamer and every female streamer in here probably has the boyfriend command, !BF, because there will always be a guy that comes in that needs to know if you have a boyfriend. And mine is, why do you care? Is this going to affect why you watch my stream?
That's a real thing? That's
It's
like
a real
command?
thing. It's a
I had
real
no idea.
command because that is always a question that's asked. Do you have a boyfriend? Because if you do, I can't watch your stream now.
So how do you feel when you go to these type of events then with that? Because again, like one of the big things that was talked about here was security. When you go to any of these types of events, whether it's Twitch or E3 or an Activision EA event for Call of Duty, what do you feel? What goes through your head when you go in to those types of things?
Most people are great. Most people are super excited to see you. Most people are super nervous to see you. And yes, a large audience is guys. So for the most part, I always feel okay. But there are, every single convention I go to, there are those couple of guys that make you really uncomfortable because they kind of just follow you around, or they don't really
They just
understand
stare, right?
socially. They just stare and they're like, I'm going to go to this panel or go do this event. And they kind of just like follow along with you, or like, I'm going to go eat dinner, and kind of like force themselves into like your dinner plans or something. So I don't know. It's just kind of scary sometimes, but I never really used to worry about it until like the last couple years as I've started growing and getting obviously these online interactions that have made me uncomfortable, like, hey, I'm gonna beat you up and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So most people though, it is through the internet. They say all this stuff online, they say all this stuff anonymously, and then they see you in person, and I never.
Yeah, your keyboard warriors.
Yeah.
We like to say. So what about you? You play a lot of Madden, Mike.
Yes.
So what was your first thought when you heard about this story at a Madden tournament, which you could have easily been at? 'Cause
Sure. It was actually pretty crazy because one of the kids that did not survive the event, I didn't know him personally, but I knew him in the online community as one of the top players, and he's been in the top tournaments and things. And I didn't care really at that who did it. I wanted to see like who was attacked, and to know that he was one of those guys there is kind of mind blowing. And then a lot of the research, I read up a lot of the stories because again, all of us are in the gaming community. So I read up on a lot of the stories, and there were signs for years that the suspect had a history of mental health issues. So could it have been stopped? There's a very good possibility, but it's just crazy to know that a very small event on a non-violent video game that the media likes to say, again, violent video games, and you're playing a football game, which again in theory is kind of violent, I guess, but it's just crazy to know, like, you have an event like this here that there's, I don't even know how many people are here, right? 10, 20,000 people in this event, right? There was a couple hundred to maybe a couple thousand, right? If even that. And it's just very so that, I know when I left here, I'm 32 years old, but I still got a call from my mother, why are you going there? There's gonna be, I'm like, Mom, listen, this is one of those things. One, I'm 32, I think I can handle it myself, all right? I'm not 12 anymore, all right, please. But it's just to kind of know that the media can put these thoughts into a person that may not be well educated on the gaming community, in a way that mom and dad are constantly texting me, hey, I know you're there. Are you okay? Please post pictures. I want to make sure that you're okay. And it's literally striking fear into a lot of people's minds that these conventions are dangerous. And I mean, I've had a very good time so far. So, yeah, I just think the whole event was crazy. It's just a crazy thing to know that you can lose your life playing something that you have a passion just because you may have said, hey, you suck, or hey, I just beat you, go home or something, and then now, he's not here anymore.
So on a funny side note, you mentioned your mom checking on you. So I've been in law enforcement for 12 years. My mom was a Marine, okay? So she could kill you with her pinky. And my mom will still check on me and ask if I'm safe.
Sure.
Is everything, I'm like, I'm 32, I've been in law enforcement for 12 years. Why are you still checking on me?
Yeah. Well, you're also in that line of business though, where you're a little.
She's your mom.
Yeah, and it's your mother, I guess, too, right?
So I've been driving on the streets as a cop for a long time, and I went to my new agency and I wrecked my Tahoe. I got T-boned by a car that ran a red light while I was running lights and sirens to a call. And I didn't tell my mom. I mean, my truck was totaled. Went to the hospital just to make sure everything was okay. And when my mom found out about it, oh my God, hour-long conversation of why I didn't call her from the damaged vehicle to let her know that I was okay.
Has to be a mom thing, I guess,
Yeah.
My mom just roasts me.
So Mike, you said it, and I'll ask Destin about it. You mentioned the mental health aspect of things. I'll go like this way. So mental health is really difficult, in my opinion, when it comes to esports and gaming. Ava and I talked about it before. You're streaming or you make Fire Team Chat, you get a bunch of viewers, you get a bunch of comments, you get a bunch of hits. you don't talk to any of those people. Whereas,
Not in real life, no.
right. Whereas if, you're here with Finnegan, Sean Finnegan starts having an issue in life and starts to have some mental health issues, there's a decent chance, not always, that you're going to recognize some of those and be like, hey, bro, is everything okay? What's going on? You don't see that there. So do you think there's any way to curb or kind of, I guess, identify mental health issues when it comes to gaming when you're interacting with someone that you don't see?
Oh, so like if I had a colleague who I play with online, would I be able to recognize mental health issues?
Right.
And
so
your
I mean,
viewers.
yeah, and
So,
like a
yeah.
viewer, because this was a player in this case, but what's going to prevent a viewer who has mental health issues from coming after you?
Yeah, I mean, I've done a lot of study of mental health issues and stuff, so there are certain things that you can look out for, but I don't know what scale you're talking about. Like, often depression is something that you can sort of spot if you're looking for it. But you don't really know until the person is being outward with what they're dealing with, So I don't think I would be able to spot somebody like that who could potentially be dangerous because it happens so fast. Like, it happens really, really quickly. And if they're plotting something like that and they haven't told anybody, unfortunately, it does seem like they can execute on that like they did in this situation. It's a depressing fact.
That's one of the issues with law enforcement, again, when it comes to gaming, because you're sitting at home, or, we always like to joke, you're in your mom's basement and playing video games, and you can't recognize them. You don't get to see them. There's not that interaction with the outside world that allows them to do it, or that allows someone else to recognize that there's something going on.
So when I play with you guys, I know when you guys are having a bad day, because I raid with these guys all the time. We haven't played together, but you're welcome to raid in Destiny if you want. but yeah, like, I know when you're having a bad day or you're dealing with something, and I just like ask you off stream, like, hey, how are you doing? Is everything okay? Do you want to talk or whatever? But I think it's more difficult to have that sort of dialogue with your community. Sometimes people, when they're sad, they'll come out and say, hey, I'm having a bad day.
Honestly, it's really dangerous to kind of get that involved with your community, because at the end of the day, streaming is a job for a lot of us. And if I'm that involved with every member of my community, I'm not streaming, and I'm not probably going to have a good time, because a lot of the times, yeah, people come in there to kind of get away from their problems, to have a good time. They're like, hey, if I'm having a really bad day, now I'm laughing, thank you.
Yeah.
And if I got, like, I've gotten close to mods, and it's always backfired. Like, anytime I've gotten too involved with my community, because they get too attached, and then it kind of becomes like an obsession, maybe an unhealthy obsession for them, like, oh, I have feelings for her, and I'm like, sorry, like, I just wanted to be nice to you, like, I'm not, And so I try not to honestly get that involved. If people are having issues in my chat, I have links, I'm like, please go talk to, like, this counselor or a therapist. I cannot help you, because I'm here to stream and just have fun and have a good time, and I want everyone else to have a good time here, but I can't be your therapist.
That's really smart too, because you're not a trained professional, but you're
I'm
like,
not.
hey,
I really am not.
Here's people you can talk to that can actually help you. That's
Yeah.
actually smart.
Yeah.
I'm learning a lot.
Yeah. Well,
about the
because
streaming
it's a little different for a guy, but especially for females, there tends to be that crossover, that line into, oh, she really cares about me, and I'm just like trying to be a nice person or something,
Yeah.
And I've recently dealt with a situation like that, and it's just like, no. And then they like to pull the guilt, like, sometimes they'll use depression or something, like, as a way to guilt you into staying, into interacting with them. Like, hey, like, I had this one guy who would kill off every member of his family. He would be like, oh, my mom died today, can you talk to me? And then it was like, my brother died last week, like, can you talk to me? And like, he killed off like every member of his family. I'm like, you have nobody left, dude. Like, and so it kind of like scares me away from trying to be open with my community, because I'm like, are you actually, like, do you actually need help, or are you just trying to engage
Get
me?
attention,
Yeah.
Yeah. That's messed up on many levels.
It really is, yeah.
I know Dr. Lupo, what was it, 3-4 months ago, was watching a stream playing Fortnite, and a kid I think he donated like either 200 bits or $200 or something like that, and he says, here's my last $200, I'm not going to be here tomorrow. And he actually ended his stream, and he reached out to the kid. These people deal with 20, 30, 40,000 people at one time. This is their job. It's so hard to invest that personal time when you're an entertainer.
Yeah.
at that point.
But then you never want to be the person that did turn away someone who might have needed
He-
help, who
Yeah.
could have.
That's what I'm saying. It's a
Yeah.
very hard in between to
Yeah.
have to do, because you want to be there for the people that invest in you and that help you pursue your dream of being a full-time streamer. But at the same point in time, it's super difficult, I'm sure. I mean, I don't have that issue. But it's one of those things that you, it's just very difficult. You know, you can't touch base with 20,000 people, and once one person does it and they see, hey, I got personal attention from Dr. Lupo or Ava
Yeah.
or
I've had to be very strict about it, and I feel bad about it a lot of the time sometimes, because I'll just, like, one guy was like, I'm gonna go walk in front of a car, and I was like, I'm gonna have to ban you right now, like, time you out, and you're gonna have to talk outside. Like, he did because he was mad, and so he, like, because he didn't like something I said, but just to throw that at me, just to, like, make me feel mad. Like, you know,
Be
some people use it as a weapon.
manipulative
Yeah.
Or what's the word? Gaslighting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there are people who, like, actually need help out there that, you know, you kind of just ruining it for for them.
Yeah, and you touched on it too, the aspect of not being the professional. You know, how much mental health training do you have, or
I've had
counseling
none.
training?
I've
Right,
taken
so then-
psychology courses in college. That's it.
So you end up going and trying to talk to somebody or helping them, and how do you know that what you're doing is actually helpful, or could it be harmful?
Yeah,
know-
well, I feel like I'm probably not ever doing enough, but I don't know what else I can do besides direct them towards someone who can help them.
Which, I mean, in my opinion, that's a great thing to do. Again, we go through, as police officers, we go through a ton of what they call CIT, crisis intervention training. And then we have an additional, it's like week or 2 week class just for mental health officers. And that's like their focus is that. And that's, anytime I ever have to do with that, especially when it comes to a juvenile, I can tell you I'll get done with a juvenile that's suicidal, and I feel completely drained. It takes so much to go through and talk to these people. I said, especially with a kid, because you're dealing with a 14-year-old or, you know, whatever the case is. And you're like, what drives a 14-year-old to that point? And the conversation that it takes, like, I'll get done and I'll go drive and sit somewhere for a while. It just completely emotionally draining. And again, for you to have something like that, you know, you hit the front page and have 2,000-3,000 viewers, and then have, you know, even a couple of them going on and do it. Again, that'll be my, like, a 4-hour for me
Yeah.
before they go off somewhere else.
I do have a private Discord channel if people do want to talk to each other in there. But yeah, again, like, I have to sometimes remind people, like, this stream is for everybody. Like, all of us have problems. We can't, like, always just focus on, you know, everyone who's having a single, you know, people come here to escape a lot of the times. And so if we turn it into a sob fest, then we're all just crying in the chat, like,
True.
you know.
It is good to hear, though, that you have given them a place to go talk. I know my friends over at Kind of Funny, they have this really great community, the Kind of Funny Best Friends. And I actually see a lot of the users on there, on the Facebook group, talk about being depressed. And especially during, like, Depression Week, people will be really open about their challenges with depression and mental health. And the communities that are fostered within, like, your Twitch community, the Kind of Funny Twitch community, they actually help lift each other up or help people
Oh yeah,
get
they're
the
great.
help.
They're
and-
so great. Everyone gets.
Yeah.
I'm having a bad day, and everyone's like, "Tell us about it. Let's rage and distract and help you." And
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. I have a question for you, Marcus. Sorry. I don't
No,
wanna
go ahead.
interrupt your thought. Do you, as an officer, as a professional, what are the regular links that you see that push people to things like this, like the Jacksonville shooting and such? Or just be creeps to Ava, for example?
So again, it's something that we've all of us have talked about, whether together or just kind of separately. As I talk to all of you, you know, there's the mental health aspect is always going to be a factor, and you know, violent video games they're not completely not involved in any type of violent event. They are absolutely a factor, but it's one of many. Generally, you have the biggest issues are going to be mental health issues, and a lot of it, and Ava said earlier, is a parenting issue. It's you know, I grew up a very military family, very religious family though, and I played violent video. I was doing uppercuts, but at the time, my mom did. I would have to go to a friend's house in order to rip somebody's head off with their spine still attached to it in Mortal Kombat. We weren't allowed to have those games growing up. As I got older, I got to play more and more of those games. So is that the reason why I'm not violent to, like, I don't have the capabilities of hurting an innocent person? Because obviously in my job, there's a potential for me to have to hurt somebody to protect. You know, but I don't have that drive. I've never had that drive. So I think a lot of it comes down to that parenting aspect, because if you teach your kids the value of life, if you teach your kids to be respectful, then you don't tend, now again, they're going to eventually be an adult and make their own decisions, or again, there may be mental health aspects of it. And I think that's a lot of what we saw here. We saw a compounding issue where this guy, he lived his life in video games. His life was revolved around this. So when he lost, it ended. He lost in life. And again, I think it's a compounding issue in a lot of things that, again, are really hard to spot for anybody, because what do you see when you watch him? Sometimes you might see a face cam, for Ava. You don't see what Ava does off screen. You see the persona that she has, or Dr. Disrespect. You see the persona that's on there, and then you don't see what goes on behind closed doors. Yeah. And so there's just so many things that go into it, but I think mental health and then parenting are going to be the two biggest things for any of this stuff, because, again, I remember being a young kid, and AOL is out there, and I was not allowed to get on AOL chat for anything.
Yeah. Parenting is huge. Parenting is such an important part of how a child is shaped into the adult that they are. And everyone has like the teacher friend. Like my friend was a teacher, and she said like her one class one year, like no parent would ever show up to parent teacher day. Like they just didn't care. And so like she had a really, really rough time that year, because like her kids didn't care. They didn't listen to her. They didn't want to do work, and she had like a second grade class. And I'm like, that young, their parents are not caring about what is happening with their children. And then it's also hard because nowadays both parents work. Women want to be more, we don't want to stay at home all the time and watch the kids. And so now you might not have two parents home as involved in their children's life because they're working, and so it's easier to just throw your kid on a video. And that's not anyone's fault or anything. Like, it's just everyone needs to be involved in raising the child. And
Yep.
It's happening. Video games are so much easier. TV's so much easier. Just go turn that on,
There's iPads, iPhones now. You can just hand your kid an iPad.
2-year-olds all know how to use like an iPhone. I'm like, my little brother knows how to. He's 13 and he's like better than Fortnite at me. I'm like,
yes.
What? I do this every day, like all day. You only get to play on the weekends. How are you better than me?
Right, and I don't know if it was the moderator, producer, and Destin, but right before you asked me that question was a fantastic segue to why do we normally do this? Because we have just a few more minutes, actually like 2 or 3 minutes. So I just grabbed a few random ones out there. So you have all these charities, you have these massive communities that are out there that raise money for various things or just bring communities together. Again, these two guys up here, I met because of video games. We're friends because of video games. Again, these communities, all these charities are there because of video games. There's a bunch of people here. Swift Tour's out here too. I met because of video games. And I've built these relationships and these bonds because of this. I'm sure all of you have heard people getting married because they met doing something, or you make these lifelong friendships. And I wanted to end on this because it's always, it's an age-old adage, but it's always true, is that good will always win, regardless. It's always going to be the community that's going to come together. Small scale or large scale, you look at 9/11 happened. What happened after 9/11? Man, everybody came together. Everybody was flying American flags everywhere. Everybody was helping everybody out. And you see the same thing with I think you'll see anytime anything like this happens in the game community, is everybody comes together and everybody, you see the community.
Raise money for sure.
So it always will fall back to this. There's always, the benefits will always outweigh it. People will always come together. People will always raise money. People will always look out for anybody else. Lene and Terrorizer were doing one at Gamers Outreach yesterday where they build custom things just so people who are in hospitals can play video games. It's fucking awesome.
That's awesome, yeah.
Use a bad word.
Yeah.
Oh,
I like seeing the stories about Guardian Con or Child's Play or Extra Life. Any of the things you have up here on the news, those are the good ones. But I hope more people start clicking those as opposed to the negative stuff.
Yeah.
And that'll always start with the community. You guys run things. No different than politics. You guys will be the ones that decide what you want to see or what you want to promote or what the stories are going to be out there. If you stop clicking on all those other things, those things tend to start going away because they're not getting the ad revenue that they want anymore. So you guys watching those charity streams or going and being involved in that, or being involved in these communities, meeting your friends and making those good stories, those will always trump.
That is one thing I learned in my degree, behavior therapy. I did a lot of behavior therapy with autistic children. Ignore the negative behavior and there will always be a decrease in it. Focus on the positive, and that's what, yeah, it's totally what would happen here.
Yep.
Can't really ignore the media, that would be nice.
It would be nice sometimes. So I was hoping to have a little bit of time for questions, but obviously we're out of time now. So thank you guys so much for coming out. For all those people that might be watching, I very much appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for being on the panel with me.
Thanks for the invite, by the way.
Of course,
No
yeah.
problem.
Thank you guys.
Thanks for letting me be on it.
So I'll still be around for a while. If anybody has any questions, I know we probably can't congregate right outside there, but I'll be hanging out over there if anybody has any questions. I don't know if anybody else might hang out for a little bit. So if there's any questions, then we'll hang out there. If you have anything about any of the subject matter, I know policing will eventually come up, and depending on the topic, we could probably talk a little bit about that as well.
Thank you guys
So
again.
otherwise, thank you guys so
Thank
much for
you.
coming out with us.
I feel so loud.